Apple Music and YouTube Music are two giant music streaming services available on iOS, Android, and many other devices. In this video, I'll walk you through how they compare after spending over 6 months with each service and which one you may want to subscribe to. So let's dive in, and first, let's talk about the apps. The apps for Apple Music and YouTube Music are a lot of the time the main way you'll interact with each service. Both services have apps available for iOS, iPadOS, Android, and watchOS. Apple Music is available through the web browser on PC or through the iTunes application, as well as through a native application on the Mac. Do note for Apple Watches, while both services have apps for the watch, you can only download songs from Apple Music directly onto the watch. YouTube Music is available on the Mac and PC through a progressive web application that runs through the Chrome browser. Also, YouTube Music will be supported on the newly relaunched Wear OS software later this year. Alright, let's dig into the apps, and first, let's look at the now playing screens. One of the first differences you'll notice is the Lossless and Apple Digital Master badges on songs and albums in Apple Music, which to me is something that makes Apple Music stand out compared to YouTube Music. And that's because YouTube Music and Apple Music offer different levels of music quality, which can affect how the music you listen to actually sounds. As of mid-2021, Apple now offers lossless audio with a maximum resolution of 24-bit 48 kHz, which is basically CD quality, as well as a high-res lossless option for a maximum resolution of 24-bit 192 kHz, which requires a digital to analog converter to listen to this format, otherwise known as a DAC. Basically, what all of this means is the tracks Apple Music is now delivering are CD quality or better, because before, Apple was compressing the tracks below CD quality at 320 kilobits per second AAC. YouTube Music has a maximum streaming quality of 256 kilobits per second, which is lower than Apple Music's standard quality, and in general, I do find that the lossless tracks on Apple Music do sound better than their YouTube Music versions. Now, Apple also has two additional tricks up its sleeve when it comes to audio quality options, and those are Apple Digital Masters and Dolby Atmos. Apple Digital Masters are signified by a badge on a certain album or song that you're listening to. When you see that badge, it means that Apple has certified that the song or album you're listening to has been mastered in a way that is going to sound good with no clipping or other audio distortion from the encoding process. Dolby Atmos is Apple Music's newest type of format that basically gives the music you listen to more space. Vocals feel farther forward, and sound engineers can do some cool tricks with this new format, like placing certain instruments behind you, for example. However, in my experience, Dolby Atmos tracks sometimes can sound more muffled than their stereo versions, or it just sounds like somebody added more reverb to the track. So at this point, I would not choose Apple Music because of Dolby Atmos, at least not yet. Alright, back to the now playing screen. Another thing you'll notice with both applications is the ability to view song lyrics. Here, Apple does a better job, in my opinion, with animating song lyrics so they're timed to the music that you're listening to. Whereas with YouTube Music, it'll just show you the lyrics, but they're not timed to the music. Speaking of animations, another cool trick Apple Music has up its sleeve is animated album artwork from artists like Coldplay and Taylor Swift, which look really cool. Now, speaking of albums, the ability to see upcoming albums that haven't been released yet is another feature that sets Apple Music apart from YouTube Music. For example, Apple Music shows the upcoming Coldplay album with tracks that have already been released, whereas YouTube Music will just show the singles from the album, but not in the context of the upcoming album with the album release date and the ability to go ahead and add that album to your library. One major part about how YouTube Music and Apple Music works is how to decide on what song should play next. Now, you can let these services decide what to play next for you, and both of them have decent autoplay queues in my experience that you can go into to reorder the suggested songs or even swipe to delete them. Apple Music and YouTube Music use your listening history as well as ratings for specific songs to recommend music to you. On YouTube Music, you can influence your recommendations by giving a song or album you like a thumbs up or something you dislike a thumbs down. On Apple Music, you can do this by clicking the three dots and either click the love or dislike button. Also note that Apple Music does seem to take into account what's in your library for your recommendations, even if it's music from an old iTunes library that you may not want to listen to anymore. So it might be a good idea to clean up your library when you get started with Apple Music if you've imported music from an old iTunes library. The second option to control what music plays next on these services is to manually go through the apps, find music, and add that music to the Play Next queue. In Apple Music, this is called Playing Next, and in YouTube Music, it's called Up Next. In YouTube Music, you have two options to add a song to the Up Next section. You can hit the three dots next to the song and select Play Next to immediately play that song next, or just hit Add to Queue to add it to the end of the Up Next queue. Apple Music works in a similar way. You have two choices when adding a song to your Playing Next queue. You can select Play Next to put the song at the top of your Playing Next queue, or select Play Last to add it to the end of your Playing Next queue. And if you don't see the option to play last, delete the Apple Music app from the device where you didn't see that option and then re-download Apple Music, and that should clear up the bug. One thing I think Apple did better than YouTube with this feature is Apple integrated your listening history with the Playing Next feature. Next up, let's go through how to navigate both apps. YouTube Music has a slightly simpler UI compared to Apple Music. There are three main tabs to navigate in YouTube Music: Home, Explore, and Library. Home shows you your personal recommendations based on your music tastes. Explore shows you new recommendations for what to listen to, plus you can search by genre or see what's hot on the music charts. And Library in YouTube Music shows you what songs, artists, albums, and playlists have been added to your library, as well as what music you've downloaded to your device. Now, taking a look at Apple Music's app, you'll see that there are a few more tabs to navigate. You've got Listen Now, Browse, Radio, Library, and Search. Listen Now is very similar to Home in YouTube Music. It shows you a lot of auto-generated playlists and other things to listen to that are based on your music preferences and listening history. Browse is similar to Explore in YouTube Music. You can see new recommendations for what to listen to based on what's hot in music today. You can see what songs are topping the charts in Apple Music in your country or in a different country, which YouTube Music has as well. Apple Music's Radio tab features old school radio delivered to you over the internet with some modern features. There are three main music stations: Apple Music One, Apple Music Hits, and Apple Music Country. Each station has their own unique shows with different hosts playing different types of music. When you're listening to music through an Apple Music radio station, you'll have the ability to not only see information about the song you're listening to, but the ability to like and dislike the song as well as add it to your library. Plus, you don't have to listen live. You can always access previous radio show episodes on the app. The next tab is the Library tab, and that's where you'll find all of your downloaded music, playlists, anything you've added to your library, regardless if it's from Apple Music or a previous iTunes library. The last tab is Search, which gets its own dedicated tab in Apple Music, and it also includes music genres to browse as well. Now, going back to the library tabs of both of these services for a second, one question you may have about these tabs is what exactly they're for when you can just stream any music you want on these services at will. On Apple Music, the library is key for one thing, and that's downloading. If you want to download a song, album, or playlist, you need to add it to your library on Apple Music. Now, this isn't the case for YouTube Music. You can download music without having it in your library. The library in YouTube Music is really essential though for seeing music that you've uploaded to YouTube Music, and it's also a handy place to save auto-generated playlists or put music that you like and want to get to without having to search for. Also keep in mind that what you have in your library on Apple Music does seem to have an impact on recommendations. Now, for YouTube Music, I've been unable to find any information that verifies it works in a similar way, and in my experience, at least for YouTube Music, it just heavily relies on your playing history as well as the songs you like and dislike, and typically really ignores whatever you've added into your library. Next up, smart speakers. Smart speakers have become really popular devices to use with music streaming services over the past few years. Apple Music is available natively on Google Nest speakers, Amazon speakers, Sonos speakers, and of course, Apple's own HomePod Mini. YouTube Music is natively supported on Google Nest speakers and Sonos speakers through the Sonos app. You can also AirPlay YouTube Music or Apple Music to any AirPlay-enabled speakers. The same thing goes for Google Chromecast-enabled speakers. One quirk to be aware of if you plan to use Apple Music with Google Nest speakers is that at the time of this recording, Autoplay is not enabled when you ask the assistant to play a specific song through Apple Music, meaning it'll play the song you asked for but nothing after. Next up, music availability, and this is a huge part of any music streaming service and where YouTube Music really shines. YouTube Music has a large category of music, especially from artists that aren't as well known because it can leverage YouTube, and you can also get access to things like concert video audio. They also have a feature in the app that allows you to switch between the music video version and regular version of songs. Now, sometimes YouTube Music will play a version of a song that you didn't necessarily want it to play, but overall I found it to be pretty accurate when requesting music through a smart assistant. Now, this isn't to say that Apple Music isn't going to have what you're looking for. For major artists, it definitely will, and it'll typically have a better sounding version of songs from artists in its catalog thanks to its support for lossless and high fidelity audio. And if there's music that you just can't find on either service, both Apple Music and YouTube Music allow you to upload your own music to their services and store that music in the cloud. In Apple Music, you can do this from the Music app on the Mac or the iTunes app on a PC. For YouTube Music, you can do this by using the YouTube Music Chrome app. Next up, playlists. Playlists are critical to any music streaming service, especially auto-generated playlists. Apple Music has personal playlists like Replay 2021, which shows my favorite tracks of the year all in one playlist, New Music Mix, which is a mix of new music based on my tastes, the Favorites Mix, Get Up Mix, which obviously has an upbeat tone, and the Chill Mix to help relax and unwind. YouTube Music also has quite a few personal playlists, including the Thumbs Up playlist, which is all the songs you've given a thumbs up to, Replay Mix, the songs you've listened to recently, My Super Mix, a general auto-generated playlist based off your preferences and listening history, the New Release Mix, Discover Mix, and then My Mixes, which are several different playlists that are based off of different artists within the same genre or type of music. You'll also run into special playlists like My 2020 Year in Review playlist, which shows what songs I was listening to last year. Both services also offer curated playlists based on what's hot in music as well as around a particular artist, genre, mood, time of year, etc. Now, one playlist YouTube Music has that I think is really smart is called the Offline Mixtape. This is an auto-generated playlist based off of your music preferences and listening history that is constantly uploaded for times when you don't want to or aren't able to stream music over a data connection or Wi-Fi. This playlist is automatically built into the service and allows you to adjust how many songs you want on the playlist in settings. Unfortunately, Apple Music doesn't have a comparable feature to this. It does have an automatic downloads feature, at least on iOS, which will let you automatically download music for offline listening when something is added to your library or purchased in the iTunes Store. But in general, the best way to download music for offline listening on Apple Music, especially for playlists, is to add that music to your library and then manually download it. And if you download an auto-generated playlist, it should continually update and download new songs automatically. Next up, social features. If you and your friends all use Apple Music, there's a social profile component to the service. You can follow your friends and share what you're listening to as well as playlists that you've made. YouTube Music allows you to share playlists but doesn't allow you to follow friends just yet, only artists on the platform. The last major difference between these two services before we get into pricing is purchasing music. I know some of you out there still want the ability to be able to purchase music through the streaming service that you subscribe to, and right now, Apple Music is the only one of these two that allows that. Alright, now let's talk pricing, and both YouTube Music and Apple Music are competitive in both their pricing and their tiers. YouTube Music and Apple Music both offer a student plan for $4.99 a month, an individual plan for $9.99 a month, and a family plan for $14.99 a month, which includes up to 6 accounts. Now, where these services differ is with bundling. YouTube Music can be bundled in with YouTube Premium, which is a service that includes YouTube Music, but also lets you watch YouTube videos like this one with no ads on all devices, enables background play for YouTube videos, and the ability to download YouTube videos as well. YouTube Music also offers a free tier, which Apple Music does not, though Apple Music does offer free trials as well as does YouTube Music. YouTube Music's free tier allows unlimited skips, and you can play specific songs in specific playlists and specific music on demand. However, it does have ads, doesn't allow for downloading or background listening, meaning you can't close the YouTube Music app and go to a different app on your phone and continue to listen to music. Apple Music can also be included in a bundle as well, specifically the Apple One bundle, which is great for those already in the Apple services ecosystem. There are 3 tiers in Apple One and includes Apple Music, Apple TV+, Apple Arcade, and iCloud storage. The Premier bundle ups the iCloud storage to 2 terabytes, plus gives you access to Apple News Plus and Apple Fitness Plus. Alright, so that's everything about these 2 services and their pricing. Now for my recommendations. Because these 2 services are competitive with both their tiers and pricing, at least here in the US. Now, if you live outside of the US, make sure you check your local pricing, and I'll leave links below to do that to make sure that's the case for you. But in general, until YouTube Music ups their streaming music quality, I'd recommend Apple Music in general because you're getting better music streaming quality. And I actually think Apple Music's app is slightly better than the YouTube Music app in terms of features. Now, if you're on Android and planning to get a new Wear OS watch later this year, YouTube Music's going to be the way to go. Or if you're a fan of more indie and smaller artists, YouTube Music might have a better catalog for you. Alright, I hope you found this video helpful, and if you liked it, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this one. Also, be sure to check out our monthly newsletter, which shows everything we publish each month, plus some links to some great tech stories and podcast recommendations, and that's linked in the video description below. For 6 months later, I'm Josh Tedder. Thanks for watching.